So, very good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to the India at 100 Fireside Chat series. I Have a Dream, where we bring together visionary leaders to share their aspirations for India's journey towards the Viksit Bharat of 2047. And today, we are indeed really blessed, I would say, to have with us someone who, of course, I personally look up to for various reasons. But besides that, someone who has not only contributed significantly to shaping India's growth journey through a sector that probably did not exist, IT services, through co-founding Infosys, but more importantly, has been someone who's been a catalyst in actually building this whole narrative of what we call new age India or new businesses in India. I would like to call him the startup king or whatever, but I know Kris doesn't like those kinds of terminologies. But someone who is passionately and truly driven, the fact that India's journey towards growth and towards establishing itself as a world leader will come through the entrepreneurial energy and power of our young people, and a support and an ecosystem that can enable that to happen is most critical. Through Axelor Ventures, he continues to do that. He was, of course, managing director, vice chairman of Infosys from 2007 to 14. He's been president of CII, co-chair of the World Economic Forum, a Padma Bhushan, and I can go on and on. But I think I always like to describe Kris as probably one of the best human beings I have met. And I think today's conversation, Kris, I'm looking forward to a heart-to-heart chat with you about a topic that I know you're so passionate about, the future of India. And, I think there could be no better time for us to be having this discussion as well, because I think the alignment between what the government is looking at, what industry is looking at, what the global geopolitics and geoeconomics is offering us as an opportunity today. I think the next 2 decades definitely belong to India. But, having witnessed and shaped the, India technology transformation over the last few decades, this journey of the next 20 years is going to be critical. And maybe there are lessons from your, journey that you have been through. What are some of those, and how can that help guide India, as we move forward? So let's begin with that, and we'll make this conversation, and touch upon many other aspects about India and its journey.
No, thank you, Rajan. I was, you know, looking forward to this discussion because it's you, right? When they told me that I'm going to be interviewed by you, I was very happy because, in some sense, you and I think alike in the need for promoting new generation of businesses, promoting businesses that leverage new technologies, emerging technologies, um, trying to leverage our youth. So, both our thinking are sort of along similar lines. And of course, you also represent that generation. I represent the older generation. So it's a good conversation to have. Um, I just want to, elaborate a little bit on the reason for me to champion this. See, I feel that every technology that we use today is important. We are also seeing that technology can be denied, especially a strategic technology can be denied. So we have to strategically think about technology sovereignty. We have to think about the products and technology that we develop, not just for our use, to export. So my experience in the IT services industry, and it's a different period. So we leveraged services rather than products because there was no VC funding, etc. We can get into it if you want to. At that point, services was the path that we took, but we together as an industry, it's just not Infosys alone, but there are companies like TCS, Wipro, HCL, etc. All of us together built the IT services industry. It became world class. It became almost 300 billion. primarily in exports of $220 billion, and employs today 6 million people. So that's what gives me the confidence that we can create world-class companies out of India. And that's the need of the hour. We need to transition to a product economy, product nation. We need to transition to an exporting, both for our use as well as, of course, emerging technology of AI. Some disruptive technology like this comes, there's an opportunity for new leadership to emerge, new companies to emerge. If you just look at US, OpenAI came onto the radar only on October 2022, right? Within a short period of 4 years, less than 4 years, they have become a $100+ billion business. Somebody says now it's $1 trillion market cap company. So there is an opportunity for us to leverage this technology to actually create products, etc. And this AI stack is not just about models. It's also about the entire stack, which includes data centers, it includes data. It includes applications on top of that. Is probably the best, and that opportunity is approximately 5 to 8x. By 2047, $18,000 per capita income. One of the key drivers is going to be the entire technology stack.
No, I think you touch upon, a topic that everyone would be looking forward to hearing from you further on, because the value creation, the wealth creation that has happened just over these last 4 years, as you rightly mentioned, with AI and with entrepreneurs like Elon Musk, who have made billionaires feel what millionaires felt when billionaires got created. Is a huge shakeup, right? I mean, and it has happened in such a rapid time frame. So one side, it's the gap is getting bigger between, say, India and the rest of the world. On the other side, there's an opportunity for us to actually leapfrog in these kind of areas, and actually position India, amongst the top 2, top 3, countries in the world. So when it comes to AI, right, and how do you see India's strategy, right? What do we prioritize? Because, there's competitiveness, there's inclusion, or can we do all of it? Where on the, stack do we sit? I think this is very, very important. And your vision and your leadership, in over a 20-year journey, we've heard one thing, that data centers will be tax-free till 2047. A Viksit Bharat agenda already announced by the government, right? But that requires energy needs, that has a different, component. It's one layer of the stack. But how do you see this AI journey over the next 2 decades?
So there are 2, 3 slices we need to make. One is by time frame. There are things that we need to do in the 0 to 3 years, 3 to 6 or 8 years, and 8 years and beyond. So the 0 to 3 years, we need to invest in creating our own sovereign models, because we need to leverage this technology in vernacular languages for use by our citizens, our businesses, to provide services to our people, which means vernacular languages. And here we will have some advantages. And companies like Servam, the initiative of Bharat that's happening at IIT Bombay, the AI for Bharat at IIT Madras, and then there are other companies that are emerging which are going to address this piece. There is also a need to actually look at setting up data centers, because this initiative will require significant invest in computing and storage. So we will have to look at setting up data centers in the country. Here we will invite foreign participation, now Google, Microsoft, etc. But I would hope that there are some domestic companies, and there are some domestic companies that are now coming forward to set up these data centers. The third piece here will be the applications that are going to be developed on top of this. And the fourth piece is the data. So applications are also starting to happen. I see now applications in healthcare. I see applications in agriculture. I see applications with using geospatial data. I see applications in logistics. So I'm seeing actually a growing number of applications leveraging AI and small language models and things like that. So that's in the 0 to 4 years time frame. The next part is the 3 to 6 year time frame, where we will have to invest in R&D to build both or starting to invest both on the we have to build the surround ecosystem. We will have to look at battery storage. We have to look at because the power requirements are going to be very high. So we'll have to start building that infrastructure, power infrastructure. We will have to look at how can we domestically manufacture some of the computing equipment that is required, maybe under license, to get started, right? Because we will not develop these things soon enough. So we will have to look at under license, just like we are doing iPhone manufacturing in India, right? So we will have to look at under license manufacturing some of these things. And we will have to think about developing applications for the world, right? Once some of these applications are deployed in India, now we can think about developing these applications for the world, especially emerging markets and things like that. And beyond 6 years, we have to start investing in semiconductor technology, the next generation of semiconductor technology, which could be 2D materials, it could be analog computing. We will have to look at that actually. And of course, our own chips and things like that. We will have to look at what is the next version of this AI, because AI will also evolve over the next few years. So we have to invest in R&D. So that's the roadmap I see. And luckily, through our AI mission, some of these are being addressed through some of the other initiatives from Department of Science and Technology, or the Ministry of Health is investing in AI for health. Ministry of Education is investing in AI for education. So we are looking at multiple initiatives supported by government. Now, where I see a need for a narrative, for a story to be created, for a, let's say, a drive or a mission to be created is in industry, large and medium enterprises in India participating in this. I see startups participating in a big way. These are all initiatives that have been taken to heart by startups, but we need especially large enterprises to step up. They need to participate in this in a big way, because this is a huge opportunity. And if they don't participate, because we need at scale, right? We need companies that are able to work in the global marketplace, which is where the larger companies have experience. We need them to participate in this.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I know this is a topic which is very close to your heart also, because ultimately the R&D spend by Indian industry, especially the larger corporates, which has been a challenge because, we lag many other countries, significantly. And that also goes back to a starting point, why are we not product, focused economy, and thinking from those lines, will require beyond the companies many other initiatives to create, the coolness of research, right? Like, I think one thing that triggered the entire startup movement was the fact that, the government, industry, young people all resonated under a clarion call that, Startup India and things like that. Can something like that be done around research where, there is there is enough maybe government benefits given beyond what exists, and create this culture and narrative that it is absolutely critical for us to make this happen, for R&D to be strong. And in your case, also philanthropy, right? I mean, you are when you talk it, you actually also yourself have contributed significantly to, say, brain research and other aspects. With AI as a horizontal today, the ability, again, as I said, for India to leapfrog on many of these fronts could be much faster. So, how do you think from this, specifically from R&D, research, academia, industry, innovation, along this, again, maybe a timeline journey, or where do you see we are today and what can we do faster and better?
See, I'm very optimistic about the scientists, the talent that's available in the country. We are second to none. It's just that the system has not been set up, or system does not reward research, with multiple people, multidisciplinary, multi-year research programs. We don't have many of them, large programs. So, and these require, investments of, 30 crores, 50 crores, 100 crores, etc. And there is no incentive to take risk. There is no requirement to take risk. Our corporates are actually, our enterprises are quite profitable, and they're doing well. The economy is doing well. So we have to create a narrative such that we need to say that we need national champions among these companies. We need to, as you build your company, we need to actually build the country also. We have to make Viksit Bharat happen. Viksit Bharat, see, the per capita income growth will only happen. The jump that's required from about $2,600 to $2,800 per capita today to 18,000 will not happen if we linearly grow, right? That jump will only happen if the per capita income increases and significantly, and that will be based on IP that we own. It will be product and product exports, right? So if you look at iPhone manufacturing, the value addition is actually very low, and the labor cost is also very low. Component is probably high, but the value accrued is very low. As we have created employment, but it's employment really at the bottom, right? So we need to think about how can we make this transition by investing in R&D. Now, what are the ways in which we can do that? The numbers are very clear. 0.7 to 0.8% is what we are investing today. We need to take it to at least to 3%. Government is increased, so it has actually gone to 0.84 now percent to the GDP. But private sector has not increased. So we need to increase the private sector investment. I've been saying that we need to look at maybe incentivizing. We need to look at for the next 5 years or next 10 years. Let's say companies are investing 2% of their profits in CSR. Can we take half of that and invest in R&D for the next few years, so that there's no additional expense from the companies, whatever they are spending today, but can be redirected to R&D for the next few years. So we need to think about innovative ways in which we can trigger R&D. I also think the board should think about requiring the management or asking questions to the management. How much of your products are coming from internal R&D versus external R&D? How much of your revenue is coming from products introduced in the last 3-4 years, which is a measure of how fast you are renewing your product portfolio. See, these questions will, require the company to invest in R&D. Today, these companies are doing well. They just bring technology from somewhere else. The very large Indian market is available to them, and they are very profitable. So there is no pressure on these companies to do anything different. We have to now. The government is planning to open up the economy. The competition is going to intensify from multinational corporations. So it is important for our companies to realize that they need to actually become globally competitive from their product portfolio. That can happen only if they have they have the IP. Two-wheeler industry is a good example. We are world leaders, and we are we are creating models that are exported around the world, manufactured around the world, etc. In the EV automotive sector, we are starting to if you look at the models that are coming from Mahindra and Tata's, etc. They are actually rated from an energy efficiency perspective better than a Tesla, right? Or a Chinese, a BYD, etc. Because they on a single charge they go for a larger distance. So we have the capability. It's just that we need to think big. We need to scale it up. We need to think about exports, etc.
No, and I think we need to, take it down to all size and scale of businesses. So I think
every
your
sector,
suggestion, yeah, and every
pharma,
sector, yeah. So your
pharma,
suggestion,
automotive.
yeah, as you were mentioning, I think a big takeaway, at least which for me, and I think could be from this conversation for India to think about, is what you said, like we had a 2% CSR, maybe 0.5% of that 1% CSR. Of course, more investment in R&D will help the company in any case. But again, a framework around which that 1% is invested, maybe it could have a collaborative framework with other external entities like academic institutions, etc. Because in CSR, you actually work with NGO sectors and others, and it gives a boost to that entire ecosystem. So I don't know, it may be worth, for us to kind of create a model, and over a period of time, whether it is investors, whether it is, public markets, they all accept that this is, an impactful outcome, because it's a cultural shift, right, that we are trying to make in India. And probably that will require a little more for, at least a certain period, maybe first 5-10 years, to make that happen beyond just the optional voluntary incentive, for companies. So that's a great thought, that
We
you've put.
need CII to champion. This is
Yeah.
right up the alley for CII.
Yeah.
We need some national champions. We need 10, 15 large companies. Our leaders in the industry sector to say that we will invest in nation building. They are doing it. They are creating good jobs. They are profitable, etc. The economy is growing, but they need to do a little bit more in terms of this transition to becoming a product economy, product nation. So if we are able to do that, I believe this will happen.
No, and I think also, Kris, the word that we keep talking about is deep tech innovation in India is missing or not happening at the scale, because those companies are actually completely innovating, right? And in areas that can, reward the country immensely, even over a longer term period. So that's also an ecosystem play. So when you use the word deep tech and you look India and the ecosystem today, and again, over a 20-year frame, how do you see that evolving and how critical is it?
It's very, very critical. I was very glad when Skyroot launched the Vikram 1, right? Extremely proud. We are one of the 5 countries which can, put a satellite on orbit, and it's a private sector company that's doing that. Private sector company, which has probably, 1/10 the investment an equivalent US company would have got, and things like that. So we are very efficient in terms of capital, etc. We need many more of that. I'm seeing that in the startup ecosystem. I see companies, startups developing jet engines. I see startups developing drones and etc. Working with many government entities, etc. Using geospatial data, all kinds of things. I see in the biotech startups developing new molecules for antimicrobial resistance and using algae for developing new materials, and all kinds of things are happening. Now, what is missing is that the growth capital required to scale them up, the ambition or the muscle memory required to become global companies, right? We need that jump. If we expect these companies to themselves become global multinationals, it may take a little more time. Can we pair them with a large company? Can we look at acquisition as a way to accelerate this? Those are the things that we need to look at. I'm very glad that the number of IPOs are increasing. There are two reasons. One, it gives them the capital that's required to expand faster. But it also gives exit opportunities for some of the founders, some of the senior employees, and where will they take this money and invest back into the ecosystem, back into startups, etc. You create a positive virtuous cycle. So all of these are actually very good. We just need to keep on going. I would also like to see some of the larger companies. Exception was Tata. They were into many of the sectors, and I will not go beyond that. But I hope that it's sustained, and I hope that other companies also step up and do that.
Yeah, and I think, when you're talking of the drivers of this ecosystem, especially when it comes to, providing returns, which even global funds and everybody looks for, and exits and, things like that, which, normally people felt take longer, and, in a country like India. Today,
it's happening.
I think it's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we look at it, there is a placement for all types of capital, right? And many a times we say that, the hard work, like in India, the hardest work is, say, if you take a real estate project, is to get the land, get all of that, get the clearance, get the road, and then the foreign, funds come and participate in the upside from there. And, a large part of the value creation is gone out, right? I mean, I actually heard this from a real estate person saying that, so in India too, even in startups, right? I mean,
exactly.
A lot of the, like you said, the growth capital, large amount of capital deployment is happening, through global capital. But that's,
Yes.
Of course, it will change over the next 2 decades. But just looking at, again, a 20-year journey on the various forms of capital, we've had this angel, we've had now very structured family offices, which are, operating as institutional capital, more or less, then venture funds, early stage, growth stage. That whole ecosystem is now actually created, but it needs to still unlock at scale, right? And how do you see that entire chain, in terms of, from the idea in the entrepreneur's mind to an IPO, and of course then beyond, which becomes much easier. But that first private capital chain in India, what is it today, and how can it change and shape up over a period of time?
So we are, getting large number of angel investors. Family offices are very active now in the startup space. We have large number of domestic VC funds. We have foreign VC funds which are willing to invest in seed and Series A. What is missing is Series A to Series C or Series D, to IPO. That's the growth stage. Now, this one, we need domestic capital to enter this space and take larger risk. Second, even when the domestic capital is there, what is missing is, the risk-taking ability of this capital in India is actually limited, in the sense that, when it comes to Series A, they expect a certain valuation. The growth fund does not give the valuation. So what happens then? It's the foreign capital that's willing to invest that kind of money. Indian capital is not willing to invest that kind of money. So the ownership changes. More challenging is that the early stage funds have no exit. So they are stuck till IPO. This is why we have this constant discussion about patient capital for deep tech. It's not, the challenge is not patient capital. In fact, capital must look at exits periodically that matches the fund's tenure. If the fund is 7-8 years, they need to exit, because it has to go forward to the next fund and the next fund, etc. If they don't exit, the investors don't get money back. They're stuck for 12 years. So the whole thing gets clogged. So we need to now create a more dynamic VC ecosystem, risk capital ecosystem in the country, where everybody recognizes that this is the stage at which I operate, and I get an exit opportunity when my stage is over. And the domestic capital is willing to pay appropriate value. I've seen domestic funds arguing about valuation, trying to say that I'll only give 40% of the valuation or 30% of the valuation because I can't, you still don't have revenue or still not profitable, so I won't give you this. In the US, look at it, seed stage gets $20 to $40 million funding. At Series A, they're getting almost $100 million valuation. And Series B, C, etc., it's $1 billion valuation. They're very, very bullish about this whole ecosystem, and they know that some of this will still fail, but they will make it on the successes, make up this on the returns on the successes. So we need to actually rejig or make our the VC ecosystem little bit more ambitious, aggressive, risk-taking, little bit more. We need to do a little bit more. We need to get some good success stories here.
No, and I think what you're saying is if we become globally competitive in terms of the amount we invest and the value at which we invest, right? Then, there is India can actually power, many other countries, the global south, etc. Because what you said, the efficiency of capital utilization, whether
efficiency of capital, the talent, the problems that we are solving are all relevant to not just developing economies, it's even developed economies. It's valid for developed economies. So, and the price at which we were able to sell will be very competitive.
Yeah. And therefore, because large capital, within the country, domestically coming, is there any other innovative thinking there, because many a times I remember, when you're talking of a country impact, right? And maybe we look at impact in where you started, right? Just the growth of a per capita GDP in India can be measured as impact. So development, institutional finance, or some unique ways in which that kind of capital becomes available to the entrepreneur at that stage of the business.
So
again,
government has stepped up. They have created the 1 lakh crore RDI fund, R&D and Innovation Fund. It's like a sovereign fund. They've taken a bold decision to deploy through our VC ecosystem. So it is actually going to be deployed through what is called the second level fund managers. So the entire distribution will happen through private distribution of this to startups. And they can also fund R&D of larger enterprises also. I would really like good companies, good startups to step up and take advantage of this. The terms are actually very, very attractive. You can get a 10-15-year loan at 1%, 2%, 3% interest. So, or equity. So we need to take advantage. We need now more funds which work in this growth stage, and hopefully this will catalyze a lot more money, because this 1 lakh crore is supposed to be matched by private participation to an equivalent of another 1 lakh crore. So, we will be deploying maybe, see, 1 lakh crore is about $12 billion. So 24 to $30 billion will be deployed in the deep tech ecosystem in the next few years. So that's a pretty substantial amount. I hope that this becomes a again an accelerator for deep tech to develop in India.
Like this, I think you've been, part of many such, programs over the past few years and going forward, where there's government, private sector, coming together. Uh, any other initiative that, you chair or because you've done so many that you feel excited about, today, especially in relationship of collaboration, because for Viksit Bharat, Kris, it's so important that, at least the alignment of thinking, and then this is action following that alignment, right? So anything that you find, exciting?
The other one is to set up incubators for deep tech in academic institutions. Department of Science and Technology has set up 25 incubators. Department of Biotechnology had set up incubators before the BIRAC program, which was quite successful in catalyzing the deep tech biotech ecosystem in the country. So Department of Science and Technology has set up 25 technology incubators across the country. And I see acceleration of deep tech. So from 450 deep techs registered 10 years back, today we have 4,500. And I'm hoping that another tenfold increase will happen in the next 20 years. And that will, of course, result in many becoming successful. SEDAMAC, Aether, there's one more actually, IdeaForge. These are deep tech companies which came out of R&D in academic institutions which have done IPOs, successful IPOs. So, we just need many more of these things, and these companies scaling up still further. So I'm very hopeful that this indeed will happen, and I hope that people listening to this, individual entrepreneurs, want to be entrepreneurs, academicians, and I hope CII members will all take it to heart, because everybody has a role to play.
Yeah.
If you are a entrepreneur, of course, think big. Look at how can I be the next Aether or SEDAMAC or IdeaForge and get my deep tech listed on our stock market. If you are an academic, can I actually create some disruptive technology in 2D materials, or next semiconductor, or the next jet engine, or next new material that can be used in medicine or things like that. And not just that, but translating that to create startups. And if I'm an large enterprise, how can I acquire these companies? How can I participate in this? How can I work with these incubators? CI has the CI Center for Excellence on Innovation, Entrepreneurship, and Startups. Some large enterprises have given us the areas of their interest. We are pairing enterprises with startups, right? So that both sides benefit. The innovation may benefit the large enterprise. They may even acquire them. The startup may benefit because they get access to markets, access to mentorship, access to resources, which these large enterprises have. So we need to continue this and scale these initiatives up.
Yeah, and I think, that acceleration that you talk of, whether it's a per capita GDP or it is a $30 trillion economy, is going to happen through what you rightly said, deep collaborations between large enterprises. And we often hear, right, and CII has championed so many of these initiatives where many large organizations deploy significant amount of capital internally and are unable to get the outcomes, of innovation that actually are residing outside, in some other companies. And that pairing together, of course, requiring a very different mindset of integration, etc. But if we can navigate that, I think that pace of acceleration and growth, can be probably much faster, which many traditional businesses or larger businesses, also tend to need the agility of a startup. I think a lot of things can happen, but at the end of the day, Kris, all of this is therefore driven by people and leaders. The new age leaders, entrepreneurs, the leaders of large corporates, and we are seeing the pressure on each of them, right? In today's environment, because there's so much which is beyond the control of the enterprise, right? Whether it's external geopolitical, reasons which lead to, input prices changing. There's so many challenges, technology shifts that are happening at a rapid pace, geopolitical risks where you cannot deal with certain types of countries and so very complex landscape. So, coming to the core of what will change India, I think over the next 2 decades are the young people of India. How should they be building themselves to be more resilient, to still take risks? What are some of your thoughts around, building that young Indian moving forward?
See, look at US, right? They are also faced with the same set of challenges. Every country is facing the same set of challenges. It's not unique to India. And different countries have different challenges. So we are all faced with, and who are going to be the winners? The winners are those, in spite of these challenges, will come out as winners, as leaders. And we need to think about how we can become leaders. To me, the leadership qualities that are required are the ability to take risk, the ability to take calculated risk. It's not risk for risk's sake, but calculated risk. The ability to have a long-term thinking. I also say delayed gratification, not instant gratification. You need patience and things like that. We need to be technology driven, be a technology leader. We need to leverage these technologies and think big, be ambitious, etc. I even tell our scientists have to become ambitious. They should not be satisfied with publishing a paper or something like that. They need to create disruptive technologies. They need to bring these to market, etc. The rewards are going to be huge. So look at you mentioned Elon Musk, right? How many rockets he has burned? He still keeps on trying, right? How many companies he has actually kind of invested in and moved on, looking for the next big thing and the next big thing, etc. And that's how he's able to IPO a 1.6 or 1.8 trillion dollar IPO, right? So we need to have that kind of mindset. I see this in our youth. Clearly, I see this in our youth. When I talk to, and I'm just going to name some companies, a Lenskart, for example, he says, I will create the largest spectacle manufacturing company in the world, which has done. I'm going to be in every market that's possible, which is done, right? So we need, ambitious entrepreneurs like this, and they will be rewarded. Our two-wheeler industry, every market we can be, we will be the best. So we have demonstrated these things. We need to scale this up on tractors. We have now selling our tractors in the US, right? So we just need to find more such product categories. We need to have champions. We need to have leaders. We need to have our own IP. All of this requires semiconductors. Now, semiconductors have become the base or horizontal technology that's required across. So I think there's a sense of urgency in the current generation of semiconductor technology, how we can play a role there. But definitely in the next generation, we need to lead. We can't miss this bus anymore because that's what is going to drive both on the economy side as well as on the defense side. So we need to make sure that we invest in this very quickly. We create capability and capacity in this very quickly.
No, when you talk of individuals, right, and what they are able to create today, right, whether you talk of Elon or you talk of Piyush Bansal from Lenskart or any of these people, it only goes to show that one individual can create such a big impact, right? And imagine, we have millions of such people, right? So,
Yes, yes.
building it correctly and imagining that progress or the outcome for themselves, for the country, attaching themselves to a larger cause can be immensely gratifying, along the journey. But one more thing, Kris, that needs to happen in India, and I know you're a strong believer, and when we do these journeys, right, we got to also build, this on the very strong foundation of whether it's ethics and moral character and trust, and when you're dealing with technologies and you're dealing with consumers and people in a globalized world, where the maturity may be a little higher. I think very important for individuals and institution builders, right, especially those that become world class and global. And we've seen, India, if we want to be a top 100 company in the world, will require a different level of rigor, because this is coming at very rapid, growth and expansion, and but it also needs to have those fundamental strong building blocks that can survive enable institutions to survive at that pace and go beyond. Any thoughts around that part of how do we in India over the 20 years look at some of these aspects?
Especially in a country like India where disparity is very large, very huge. We have to make sure that ethics and values, etc., play an important role. We have to build sustainable, institutions for the longer term. So clearly, we need to build this on foundations of good governance, foundation of ethics, values, foundation of fairness. So that's why I said, India has a role to play in developing products and technologies, because when it's developed in India, it's affordable. We will make sure that it's accessible to, if we make it accessible to 1.4 billion people, it'll be accessible to the 8 billion people in the world. So this is a contribution that India can only make. It's uniquely Indian. When we created the COVID vaccine, per dose cost was $3. The US vaccine at the same time was $30, 10 times what we were delivering. And that's why we were able to deliver to 100 plus countries. Right? Because it was affordable. So, it's just not a requirement or a, necessity for India. It's a necessity for the world. There is a role that India can play. There's a responsibility that India has at this point. And hence I say that, truly this is 21st century is our century. We have that space now. Now, do we take advantage of that is the question. And I'm very confident that if we convince our youth, they have the wherewithal, we provide the necessary fuel, mostly in terms of ambition and the drive to do this, and some resources, some money, funding, etc. I think we will succeed here.
Yeah, and I think the way you put it is so important, that we get this done holistically, right? And we get it holistically done for India, as a country, and then we will be able to unlock this, what we call Indianness inside, that can go to everywhere in the world. Like we all often say, India will be a super partner to the world, and that will make us a superpower. The ability,
Right.
and we've done that, and I think the entire IT services, etc.
And that's the beauty of India, right? We are not conquering in the physical term, we are conquering, in terms of product services, conquering the minds of people. Why is every multinational coming to India to set up their GCC? Because the talent is available, talent is affordable, the work ethics is very good. People work very hard, right? And they are not afraid that their IP is going to be stolen tomorrow, right? So we are actually, by nature, we are very ethical and we are hardworking and we're good people. And that's why people trust us. Now we need to take advantage of that and build products for the world, our own IP for the world.
Yeah, and this happens through people to people connect. And
Yes.
what you're saying is, I think, an opportunity which has never happened in the history of mankind. 1.4 billion population, democratically elected country, government with young people transforming itself, from an emerging economy to a developed one in a time frame of 20, 25 years. I think it's a very unique opportunity, as you rightly said. And if we don't do it, it's for us to blame, collectively. And I think all that you have said so far, Kris, is just so exciting
In
and
some sense, this
energizing.
is the responsibility of every 25-year-old, 30-year-old, 35-year-old, because the next 30 years is your decade or your decades.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha and the Gen Betas who will be 25-year-old when this happens, to take this on, right? It's the process
Yes.
of change. And I know we've just kept talking and we've nearly completed an hour. But Kris, I want to end with this dream, right? Like we've talked about so much of India. And when you wake up on 15th August, 2047, in that India at 100, and you look around you, right? What would be the most exciting thing for you to see, on that day?
No, thank you for saying that I'm going to be alive at that point.
Of course, you.
I'm working very hard to be alive at that point.
No, there are many startups and companies in India that are tackling longevity and health, so you don't have to worry about that. But when you
Right.
wake
So
up, yeah, what do you see?
I want the goal is we crossed the 15,000 crore 1500 sorry 15,000 crores per capita income. We almost hit or we exceed the $30 trillion economy. What gives optimism is in the last 30 years we have gone from 600 billion to 4.2 billion per 4.2 trillion economy, right? We have grown, almost, almost 30 times in the last, is that 60 times almost, so it's possible to grow. And that's what I'm hoping that will happen. Did I do my math right? 600 billion. No, sorry, we have grown 6 times.
Yes.
Six times, not 60 times. We have grown 6 times. So growing another 8 times is possible. And what will drive that is emerging technologies. And there are multiple emerging technologies. Quantum is there. Many of the innovations in healthcare, for example, in genomics and proteomics and things like that, which is completely going to transform healthcare. In automotive, we are looking at transition to electric, self-driving cars and things like that. We're looking at new types of fuels. We have the first hydrogen-powered train running now on trials. So it's a very exciting period actually. And these multiple innovations, multiple emerging technologies will create leadership opportunities and multiple engines of growth. That's what gives me optimism. And so when I wake up, 1993, we couldn't get a phone. We had to wait. Today, we can just walk in and buy any of the best phones in the world. Several such transitions, one of the best telecom networks. How many options we have in cars, right? everything is much better today. So I have seen this happen. And the next 30 years, I'm hoping that, this will get amplified, multiplied. A lot more people will benefit from that. And India will be a developed economy. We will have 800 billion people, who are considered middle class, upper middle class, etc. Completely different India, and an India that will export to all the other countries. The technology that's being developed, being used by people around the world will be from India.
Yeah. No, I think, what you're painting a picture and what we've discussed over this hour is, the journey from what people, saw, 2 decades ago, and maybe the journey of this that started with India at 60, and you were so key in, CII and the whole leadership building the India at 75, and now, from an India at 75 to an India at 100, what is science fiction today is a reality in 2047, right? I mean, earlier days used to say you clap a hand and lights used to go on, and one's wondered what was that, right? And we saw that happen. And today, when you look at the world and science fiction and what you believe, technology and the cross section of human imagination, and we're talking of colonies and living on Mars, and who knows what will actually happen. But I think it doesn't stop our young Indians from dreaming, and I'm sure you have triggered that spark in every young person here and everyone else who's invested in that ecosystem and the future of India. So thank you, Kris, for talking like a next gen person in even though with the experience and wisdom of what you have achieved. So thank you for such a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Rajan, and thanks to India at 100 and CII for giving this opportunity.
Yeah, and we'll continue to trouble you on many things as we move forward with all your inputs and your own support for this. So thank you so much.
Thank you.